Would you ever thought of the situation, where you're stuck in the life, where you have to had the big bold books that you are ever gonna imagine, and you have to memorize all the things, which are being stated in this book. It is so hard, right? But this system was practicing, and we are exercising this since 1986. Since 34 years, we are just memorizing the things, what we have learned, and we are just putting in the mark sheet, in the answer sheet, so that we can gain marks, we can yield marks, so that we can get a job. But this kind of rote learning will end up as not as a learner, not as a student, but just a machine that works, that memorize, and to do like a machine. Why we live like a human? Because in this 21st century, the AI and the machines are just evolving and also replacing the humanoid things. What humans gonna do in 10 hours, the AI is doing in just 1 hour. So what we can do? That's where the key thing comes in. New educational policy. Yes, of course, you have heard right. New education policy has been determined by the government of India, so that the 10 plus 2, 10th class plus the intermediate, this scene has been demolishing, and a new educational policy, 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 2. This is the new educational policy, and I know that you won't get that determination about why this works or not. Let us try to find out in our video whether it works or not. Firstly, what is here NEP means? So National Educational Policy. So why it really implemented now? It was set up in 1986, which was 34 years ago from now, and from there, we are trying to make students to just analyze and also memorize the things. How this has happened? Because at the time the machines were not available probably, or the computerization or the digitalization was too less at that point of time. So at that time the jobs were created on the basis of the memorization and also the hard work that was really needed. But now the things have been changed a lot since then. The digitalization has came, the globalization has been the main mentorship at this point of time in the world. So this time, where the national educational policy, which has to be implemented, where we can compete with China, US, and other the developed nations in the world. Because with this rote learning, we can't unable to set up the standards and also compete with the world. So for that reason, the government of India has taken a new step for the new and the national educational policy. Understand the structure of the NEP. So number one, before we're gonna have the 10 plus 2 rule, which means up to 10th class and plus intermediate first and second. But now the system has changed to 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4. What is this? So I will explain. So 5, nursery, LKG, UKG, and first and second classes. Now let us keep this aside, and plus 3. So third class, fourth class, and fifth class. And after the 3, 6, 7, and 8. And after the 4, 9, 10th, and intermediate first and second. So this is the structure which was reimagined and restructured as in the national educational policy. That's what we're gonna call as new educational policy. What this and why this? Because this will give the students that the right learning structure. Because before that we used to make them to learn in a rotten way so that they can memorize a lot. But now that we have processed or we have taken the students' analytical power to the next level, this is not that what have to be thing, but how it has to be thick. That's what we are insisting in students' brain at this by this new educational policy. And number 2 is the mother tongue. Of course, in this globalization, we are really thinking of the terms in English. We are going apart from our mother language. It might be Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, or it might be Punjabi or Marathi, whatever it might be, but the mother language will give you the concept clarity. That's what it is missing in the English medium people. That's where this new educational policy step ups and solves this problem. So that is the reason why new educational policy has bringing up to 5th class, it is making the mother language mandatory, by which the students can analyze the concepts and also understand with so much clarity, so that they can write in English as well after the translation of it. Is the vocational training. Yes, of course, we are so concentrated on the academics, on the books, but we have just in the last generation, we have forgotten the dignity of labor. Yes, I say this because the work that the laborers are doing, it might be carpentry, it might be the metal worker, it might be anything, regarding it, we are taking it as a granted one, and we are not seeing that as a skill. That's what the mindset has to be changed from this generation onwards. So that is the reason why government has insisting the vocational training, which gonna have coding, metal work, and it also teaches the carpentry and the plumbing works, whatever the categories they are regarding to. Why this? Because we gonna have a doubt that why our children are the laborers? Definitely not. But it will make the person's ideology and the mindset to give respect to each and every person. Every work has its own importance, and every work needs to be respected in their own way. This is the first thing that children have to be understand in this world. And number 2, it not only solves the problem of mindset, but it also engages people to work in different kind of workshops, and also to learn different kind of handicrafts or the skills that are needed in their real life as well. As we are saying, in US, no one are gonna have the household keepers. They have to do by themselves. So that is the reason why it's gonna help the individual as well, the children as well, to do their own work. Is the multidimensional entry and exit points. What is this? So before that, the student has to complete the whole graduation, or it might be the whole engineering from at the same point of time. It might be 4 years, it might be the 3 years. But what really happened there? Yes, of course, students have been passed out, but what about the people who are underprivileged? What about the people who are economically downtrodden? For that people, they have been pushed into the corner that they can't supposed to continue the graduation or their engineering. They have to middle drop in the middle. But this new educational policy have been encouraging them that they can come out and start from the point where they have been stopped. This kind of cushion, it is so brilliant, and it is so forceful for the student, so that they can achieve their goals, wherever the background or whatever the background they are from. This is the new educational policy. The new educational policy, or the national educational policy, yes, of course, we all might not like it, or we may think that what kind of weird policy is this? But to be on the plan that when we look upon the China, when we look at US, when we look at the European nations, the developed countries have changed how the perception of education is seen. We have moved from the memorization of the things to the analytical things of it. We have to analyze each and every information that is coming, because we got a lot of information at this point of time because of the globalization, because of the evolved technology. It might be AI, or it might be their coding, or it might be the monetary skills. We got a lot of information in our hands, but the only problem is that how we think, how much big that we're gonna think. That makes up the point, and that makes who holds the power in the world. Our educational policy is the root cause how India develops in the next 50 years to come, because this educational policy is not for you or not for me. It's for India. It is for India, and it is for the future development of the minds of the new generation of India. So let us see how the implementation, because as I said before, in theory everything will look really good, but when it comes to the execution, that makes the real quantity of it and real quality of it. So let us try to understand whether it works or not in the future years. But for now, this is the National Educational Policy. Thanking you. Signing off, Shiva Satyaswar.